Because this is the part the playlist princes do not want to say out loud. That new Kendrick Lamar leak is not scary because it sounds finished. It is scary because it does not. A rough little Kendrick snippet started flying around X, Instagram pages, and Reddit, and fans immediately tied the beat to Feeling from Freddie Gibbs and the Alchemist's Alfredo 2. Now, stop and think about how crazy that is. We're talking about the same Kendrick Lamar who just came off GNX, who turned Not Like Us into a 5-Grammy wrecking ball, and who then headlined the most-watched Super Bowl halftime show ever, according to the AP. And now, in the middle of all that, a stray studio file shows up in a grimy Alchemist pocket, and suddenly the whole rap conversation bends again. Most artists leak when the rollout is broken. Most artists leak when their house is messy. Kendrick leaks, or at least publicly circulating snippets tied to him appear, and it feels like the ceiling is cracking somewhere else. Personally, this threatens every rapper who was hoping the boogeyman had gone quiet. Culturally, it reopens the question a lot of people wanted buried after 2024. Who is really setting the standard in rap right now? And systemically, it reminds you that one artist can still shake the machine without dropping a single official record. And when we get to why this likely came through a collaborator lane instead of Kendrick's own vault, you are going to understand why the panic press is already trying to make this seem smaller than it is. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now, let's set the record straight on what is actually happening here, because this is bigger than "Oh cool, a Kendrick snippet." Kendrick is in that rare place where every sound, every rumor, every half-heard verse gets treated like market-moving information. That is not normal artist behavior. That is not even normal superstar behavior. That is what happens when a rapper wins the biggest public battle of the streaming era, follows it with more real-world victories, and never starts moving like a thirsty content machine afterward. He did not go on a sympathy tour. He did not start posting every hour. He did not beg the culture to keep him hot. He kept working. And the facts around that run matter. Billboard had GNX debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200. Billboard also had Squabble Up hitting #1 on the Hot 100. Not Like Us went from diss record to anthem to Grammy juggernaut. Then the Super Bowl performance turned him from rap giant into full-scale American event television. So when a new Kendrick file, even a rough one, starts circulating in public, people are not hearing 20 seconds. They are hearing possibility. They are hearing leverage. They are hearing the sound of somebody who might still have 3 or 4 more left turns in the chamber. And that's where the fear part comes in. Because the panic pack wants rap to feel stable again. They want a world where Kendrick already had his moment. The beef is over. The trophies were handed out. And now the rest of the industry can go back to its little playlist grift in peace. But what if that is not what is happening? What if this leak is not just a random leftover, but a glimpse into how wide Kendrick's current recording world actually is? Is it a demo? Is it a cut feature? Is it an abandoned version of somebody else's song? Or is it proof that even while the public thinks he is quiet, he's still touching records that would instantly rearrange the room if they ever came out? The first visible piece of evidence is the snippet itself, a roughly 20-second clip, raw, loose, a little mumbly, very clearly not polished for release, starts bouncing around fan pages and forums. And the thing that hit people was not perfect clarity, it was pocket. Kendrick sounds like he is feeling his way through an idea, sliding in and out of cadences, almost like a studio draft caught halfway between instinct and execution. That matters. Why? Because with most rappers, rough audio kills the aura. With Kendrick, rough audio somehow increases it. You are hearing process from somebody whose process already has a championship reputation. That's like finding practice footage from an all-time great and realizing the warm-up still looks better than most people's main event. The second piece is the beat identification, which is where this stopped being a random fan rumor and started becoming an actual rap discussion. Fans across X and Reddit quickly started matching the instrumental pocket to Feeling on Alfredo 2, the Freddie Gibbs and the Alchemist record with Larry June. Publicly circulating side-by-sides made the connection even louder. Now, I want to be clear, unless Kendrick, Alchemist, or the artists involved confirm the exact origin, that part remains fan-led analysis. But if that match is right, then this is not just Kendrick leaked. This becomes Kendrick was recording over an Alchemist beat that ended up living in another respected rap universe. Does everybody understand how different those two stories are? One is gossip, the other is a map. The third piece is timing, and timing in hip-hop is never innocent. This snippet is not emerging when Kendrick's name is cold. It's surfacing after a period where his public value went nuclear. Billboard, Grammy visibility, the Super Bowl, the constant life of Not Like Us, all of that made Kendrick larger than a normal album cycle. So when a leak lands now, it doesn't feel archival, it feels current, even if the file itself is older. That's why the panic press can't frame this as just a throwaway. A throwaway from a quiet artist is trivia. A throwaway from the most discussed rapper of the past 2 years becomes part of the main story. And then there's the fourth thing that people who really watch this space noticed. These Kendrick-related leaks and snippets almost never feel like they come from a busted-open solo vault. They tend to appear around collaborator or extended circle situations. Fans were already talking about that after other Kendrick-adjacent snippets reportedly floated around through outside camps. What does that tell you? It tells you his own house still looks tight. The crack appears when more people touch the file. Producer folders, feature requests, engineer exports, album sequencing sessions, extra hard drives. The room gets bigger and the risk gets bigger with it. That is not chaos, that is chain reaction. And I think we need to set the truth on what is actually happening here, because the bigger evidence starts when you look at who Kendrick has been connected to and how the culture reacts every time that circle gets even a little wider. And oh, do I have more for you, because the playlist princes are really not going to like this next part. The scary piece is not just that Kendrick has a leak. The scary piece is where the leak seems to point. We are about to talk about the Alchemist history, why respected rap circles reacted differently than the stan economy did, and why one tiny unfinished snippet feels more dangerous than some artists' entire 6-week rollouts. So if you were one of those people still pretending Kendrick's run ended with the trophies, sit tight. The file path is about to get very embarrassing for the panic pack. Start with The Alchemist. This is not some random producer connection fans invented overnight. Kendrick Lamar and The Alchemist have a real, documented working relationship across years and eras. The Alchemist has publicly said Kendrick had the Meet the Grams beat in stash long before the Drake battle exploded, which already told you something important. Kendrick does not just hop on whatever is hot that week. He stores, he studies, he waits. Add in Alchemist's fingerprints around Kendrick's broader catalog era to era, and now this new snippet feels less like an impossible crossover and more like another glimpse into an ongoing creative line that the public only sees pieces of. Now, look at the kind of reaction this snippet got. The loudest responses were not, "Oh my God, Kendrick is trying to chase a hit." No, the reaction in serious rap spaces was frustration that the clip was so short and immediate curiosity about what session it came from. On Reddit, on rap pages, in hip-hop circles that still care about bars, one of the most common responses was basically, "You mean to tell me even the scraps sound like this?" That is a cultural tale. When fans and insiders hear a leak and the first instinct is not skepticism but hunger, that artist is operating under a different set of rules. Some artists leak and people ask, who approved this? Kendrick leaks and people ask, what vault are we not seeing? And then there's the company this sound points toward. Freddie Gibbs, The Alchemist, Larry June. That is not the glossy algorithm-first side of rap. That is credibility ecosystem. That is grown man rap, producer rap, lyric head rap, trunk space rap. So if Kendrick is touching that lane while also being the guy who can dominate stadiums, charts, Grammys, and global TV, what does that do to the rest of the field? It kills the comfort zone, because now the argument is not just Kendrick can make the big cultural record. The argument becomes Kendrick can walk into your favorite niche, your favorite purist pocket, your favorite producer's world, and still sound at home. That's where rappers get nervous, because now there's nowhere safe to retreat. Could this all still be old? Absolutely. Could it simply be a demo that never meant anything larger? Of course. I want to be fair there. But here's where that counter-argument falls apart for me. Even if the file is old, the reaction to it is current, and the current reaction tells you exactly where Kendrick sits in the culture. Nobody heard this and said, well, he's washed, this proves nothing. The debate instantly became about how much unreleased material he might have, what circles he has been recording in, and whether more of it could surface. That is not nostalgia, that is active pressure. And notice who gets uncomfortable whenever that pressure shows up. The panic press starts minimizing. The Stan accounts start pretending roughness means weakness. The playlist princes start hoping everybody moves on by tomorrow. Why? Because they know the culture remembers patterns. Like I told y'all after the Super Bowl, Kendrick's quiet is not empty quiet. It's loaded quiet. It's the quiet of a guy who doesn't need to tweet to stay central. And once you understand that, the story stops being about a cool little leak and starts being about files, access, and the business mechanics that make this kind of thing possible in the first place. So, let's do the hard gear shift, because this is where basic reaction channels tap out. Forget fandom for a second. Forget the excitement. Think about chain of custody. If this publicly circulating snippet really is tied to a beat that later showed up on Alfredo 2, then the important question is not, did Kendrick record over it? The important question is, how many hands had to touch that record before it became a released or near-released asset somewhere else? Producer sessions, beat versions, stem exports, engineer passes, feature requests, management approvals, label communication, album sequencing, metadata changes, sample clearance discussions. Every extra node is a risk point. That's why superstar solo vaults can stay sealed for years while collaborator records leak through the seams. And this is the first systemic angle that matters. Leak risk rises with collaboration complexity, not just artist fame. Kendrick's brand for years has been control, careful releases, sparse interviews, low noise movement. So when a snippet pops up, the lazy read is, see, even Kendrick leaks. No, the smarter read is that the only practical way to get Kendrick material in public is often through the wider web around him. That distinction is huge. It means the story is not sloppiness at the center, it's vulnerability at the edges. In other words, Kendrick's fortress may still be intact. You're just seeing what happens when files travel through the industry's crowded hallway. The second systemic angle is even bigger, attention economics. The rap business in the streaming era is built on controlling calendar space. Labels want predictable release windows. DSPs want playlist narratives. Media wants clean story arcs it can package, repeat, and monetize. The panic press especially loves a simple cycle: beef, aftermath, winner, loser, move on. Kendrick breaks that system because his value is event-based
and scarcity-driven. He does not need constant visibility. In fact, his scarcity increases the price of every public appearance, every verse, every rumor. So a leak is not just content, it is an unscheduled market event. It steals oxygen from planned campaigns and reminds the room that one artist's leftovers can still dominate a week. And that is devastating if you are one of the playlist princes whose whole empire depends on engineered frequency. Some of these guys need deluxe editions, influencer packages, mystery billboards, fake subtle media spins, and 1,000 sponsored clips just to stay in the center lane. Kendrick can disappear, breathe on a 20-second file, and suddenly all the rap heads are back at the table arguing about hierarchy. That is not hype, that is hierarchy, and the system hates hierarchy when it cannot manufacture it. There is also a rights and placement angle here that people overlook. If an Alchemist beat was floated to Kendrick, then later properly placed on a Freddie Gibbs and Alchemist album, that changes the release reality for any Kendrick version. Sample clearance, exclusivity expectations, artist relationships, sequencing priorities, and business timing all come into play. A record can be excellent and still become commercially inconvenient. That means some of the best music in the world never comes out for legal, strategic, or relational reasons. And if that is what happened here, then this leak is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of abundance. There was enough high-level material moving around that one path closed and the public still ended up hearing a ghost of it. Now combine both angles and the real picture appears. Kendrick is dangerous to the system, not only because he makes strong music, but because he creates pressure at every stage of the machine. At the creative stage, he raises the standard. At the rollout stage, he breaks scheduling logic. At the media stage, he exposes who is reporting and who is spinning. At the fan stage, he keeps the culture in a state of alert. That is why I keep calling them the panic press. They are not covering a normal artist. They are trying to contain an artist whose unused files can still reset the discourse. And if you are a rapper living off momentum that was partly fabricated by playlist placement and narrative protection, what are you supposed to do with that? Smile? No, you get nervous. So here's the truth bomb, and it's the part a lot of people are dancing around. This Kendrick leak is frightening to the rest of rap because it proves the gap may actually be getting wider, not smaller. Not because this exact clip is some finished masterpiece, not because every leak needs to become a release, but because a rough, likely unfinished, possibly shelved Kendrick studio moment can still create more real conversation than many artists' official singles. Think about how humiliating that is for the panic pack. The public did not need a rollout trailer, a teaser campaign, or a fake countdown. They heard a fragment and immediately treated it like a clue to a larger empire. And to me, that's the real reveal. Kendrick's unreleased catalog now has cultural force of its own. His scraps do market work. His demos create anxiety. His silence creates speculation. That means the machine no longer controls the temperature when his name is involved. The machine reacts to him. The playlist princes do not fear one leak because it might top charts tomorrow. They fear what the leak says about inventory, discipline, and range. If he has Alchemist pocket material sitting somewhere, if he has records touching different rap ecosystems, if the public is this activated by a fragment, then what happens when he decides to actually move again with intention? That's the catastrophic part. The field has been praying for Kendrick to become narrow. They wanted him boxed in to the diss guy, or the conscious guy, or the big event guy. This snippet, reportedly tied to a completely different production lane, reminds everybody that he is still hard to box in. He can go stadium, he can go battle, he can go dusty drums and surgical bars. And when one artist can touch all those rooms while still owning the top of the culture, the rest of the industry doesn't just feel challenged, it feels cornered. And that is why, in the end, the right person is still winning. Kendrick did not get here by flooding the market. He got here by building trust with the audience. When people hear his voice, even in rough form, they assume there is substance worth chasing. That is a brutal kind of power, and it only comes from years of discipline. Look back at the evidence. The leak did not seem to burst from a central camp. It appears, reportedly, through the wider collaborator web. The timing did not save a dead run. It landed on top of one of the strongest post-beef victory laps rap has ever seen. The reaction was not mockery, it was hunger. And that's the whole story in one line. Some artists need a rollout to feel important. Kendrick makes the room shake with a rumor. That is why the panic press always sounds annoyed when his name comes back around. That is why the playlist princes keep acting like every Kendrick moment is supposed to be the last one, and then another one shows up anyway. You cannot engineer your way past somebody whose credibility is this compounding. You cannot spin your way past a standard. The culture may get distracted for a week here and there, sure, but when it's time to measure real weight, people still know what they are hearing. So no, I'm not telling you this tiny leak means an album is dropping tomorrow. I'm not telling you every rumor is gospel. What I am telling you is simpler and honestly harsher for the rest of the field. The scariest thing about Kendrick right now is that even the unfinished moments feel alive. The man who does every job to 100% still has the culture listening for footsteps. That should be comforting if you care about rap, because it means craft still matters. It should be terrifying if your favorite rapper has been surviving on branding, because branding sounds very small once the real standard walks back into the room. And this is only the start. If more Kendrick material ever surfaces, watch where it comes from. Watch the producer lanes. Watch the collaborator albums. Watch who suddenly gets cagey in interviews and who gets loud on socials for no reason. Because one verified feature, one properly cleared verse, one left turn release in a different rap pocket, and this whole conversation jumps another level. If you've been watching this channel, you already know I don't think Kendrick's quiet period is a cool down. I think it's a loading screen. So stay close, because the next piece of this story might not be a leak at all. It might be a feature placement, a producer confirmation, or a move that shows this snippet was just a shadow of something bigger. And if you want the real business breakdown on how Kendrick turned one rap battle into long-term leverage over media, labels, and the whole streaming circus, check out the next video on your screen, because that one gets into the part nobody wants to admit either. The beef ended, but the consequences for the industry never did.